for New Orleans Public Schools. My name is Julianne. I'm the Director of Community and Governmental Affairs, and we're excited to have you joining us virtually tonight. And we are excited to have you here. I'm going to introduce our Superintendent, Dr. Williams, who will be leading us tonight for our presentation.
Good evening,
and
everyone. Go ahead, Julianne.
And I'm going to share my screen too, so everyone can see our presentation for tonight.
While she's setting that up, I just want to say welcome to everyone who's out there listening, and we are always eager and excited to share. All right, we ready to roll, Julianne? I'm ready.
I think we are ready.
All right. Again, Dr. Avis, proud superintendent for NOLA Public Schools, and excited to be here to share with you. Many of you engaged with me during my entry here, during my 100-day plan when I was doing the ABC tour, and you guys remember Dr. Avis's beignets and conversation, which was pretty amazing. I definitely enjoyed that. But we're gonna definitely ride through a few slides for you, but starting off with just a couple of reminders. These are just virtual meeting norms. I'm sure you're all familiar at this point. We want to make sure that everyone stays muted. And so we do want to make sure there's not any background noise. Also, you're welcome to keep your screen on and off. That's completely up to you. There'll be an opportunity for feedback and questions at the end. And then feel free to engage with the chat if you've got any questions. And we're excited to answer your questions and get feedback from you as well. So this is an executive summary of our NOLA-PS Evolve, which is the strategic plan of action that we are really close to being ready to launch and to implement. And before we do that, Julianne, I know we've got the Padlet as a way for people to give feedback, and I wanted to make sure that everybody knows about that before we get started. Can you tell about that?
Yes, there's going to be a Padlet link that you can leave feedback and questions. And also, if anyone needs interpretation services, there's going to be info in the chat for anyone who needs that information. And again, we're going to be taking questions at the end, so please just hold questions at the end. And you can also leave feedback on our Padlet link as well.
Thank you so much. And that feedback is something that we absolutely use to make sure that you're being heard and that we're being intentional about the work that we're doing. So let's dive in. So when we think about the strategic plan of action, some of you may have heard me talk about reimagining our strategic plan. So what does that mean? It's really looking at the evolution that has taken place from the time the original plan was being planned and written to now. And so we want to look at the evolution of our strategic plan of action through the lens of continuity, expansion, as well as enhancement. And I'm just going to point out a few parts of this. When we think about continuity, we want to really make sure that the pieces of the 2021 through 2025 strategic plan that are still relevant, are still true in our current, our reimagined strategic plan. So when you think about some of the pieces like information sharing, the NOLA-PS role clarity, the charter school accountability framework, family and community engagement, those are pieces that in that plan that the board approved in 2021, we want to ensure that they're still embedded and that we have continuity for this new reimagined plan. But there's also a space where we know expansion is necessary. The plan that we're reimagining was board approved in 2021, which means that it was written prior to that. And all of that being the case, we know that there's a need to expand because a lot has changed since the 2021 school year. And so when we think about that, we think about elevating student voice, making sure that mental health and trauma support are really front and center. We also think about advancing equity. And I'd like to say that equity is a through line to all of the work that we're doing as we reimagine the strategic plan. And you'll hear things about some initiatives that we have, like our portrait of a graduate and like our focus on literacy and long-term organizational planning. So those are a few of the ways that we're looking at making sure that not only are we maintaining the continuity of that original plan, but also expanding it based on what our current needs are. And then enhancement, how do we enhance that plan in terms of the structure of it? So our strategic plan of action includes clearly defined goals and strategies that correspond with those goals, along with key performance indicators. Also, redesigning the layout, making it more reader friendly and user friendly, elevating actions and outcomes from that 21 strategic plan, while also including a reporting and monitoring framework along with the timeline. And one of the things that you'll notice right out is we're moving from a strategic plan to a strategic plan of action, and super excited about the action part of that. So as we think about this work and the needs of our schools and our community, we do it through the lens of 4 commitments, and those commitments are listed here. The first commitment is effective and connected communications. High quality schools is number 2. The third commitment is students, staff, and community well-being. And then finally, operational excellence. And I'm going to walk you through some of the high points of each of those commitments. And again, reminding you that the Padlet is available and you're able to give feedback on each of these commitments because we've been really comprehensive in how we've looked at data to land at these commitments, but we'd love to hear from you if there's something that you need clarity on, or even something that you think we may have missed. So for that first, for the overview, before we get to each of the parts, let's talk about the basic commitments that we're making with each of those 4 commitments. So effective and connected communications. We really want to ensure that there's clarity and consistency around our messaging, and transparency, making sure that we're lifting up student voices as we do this work. Along high quality schools, providing a quality school environment for each and every scholar within our schools. And we do that by prioritizing the portfolio strategy, early learner support, literacy, and making sure that we're leaning into diverse learner support. For student, staff, and community well-being, collaborating with diverse stakeholders to drive the best outcomes for our entire community. So that includes our students, our staff, families, and all other stakeholders within our community. And this is one of the spaces that I'm excited to have included in our strategic plan of action because it's so needed. We need to make sure that we're normalizing talking about mental health and providing trauma support. And we need to continue supporting school attendance, as well as family and community engagement, all of which needs to be done by advancing equity across all components of our school district. As we look at our system-wide partners. And then a new piece is also making sure that we've got some solid pieces where we're leaning into teacher and leader support so that those key stakeholders within this work have what they need to be successful. And then finally, operational excellence. We're driving the most healthy and sustainable conditions for long-term viability. And this is about our facilities. It's also about finance and funding. We're looking internally about our district level human resources department, and also leveraging our data for continuous improvement and long-term organizational planning. Now is the part that I was waiting on, to dive into each of the commitments. And again, this is where if you've got something specific for one of the commitments, by all means, please use the Padlet to let us know what your thoughts are. So again, this is effective and connected communication, and that clarity, consistency, and transparency are really important for this particular commitment. And we want to do this by ensuring that stakeholder communication is accessible for visual and hearing impaired stakeholders, as well as available in a variety of languages, and specifically English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. We also want to ensure that our student experience is positive, so that at 75% of our students survey and express satisfaction in terms of their opportunities to engage, as well as their voice being heard. We want to establish data media processes and systems to make sure that we're communicating to promote district and school level work. sharing our progress and our performance, as well as managing the distribution and access to information to all of our stakeholders. And doing so will also ensure that we're increasing positive stakeholder perception. And then finally, wanting to ensure that we have multi-channel stakeholder engagement plans so that there are a variety of ways through which we can engage with our students, our families, our schools, and the community at large. And as we do this, we also want to ensure that we have high quality schools, right? This is our core work. We think about the work of a school system. It is to educate our scholars so that they can be successful beyond high school. And we do that by making sure that we are paying real close attention to what we consider quality. One of the things that we're working on now is our 5-year portfolio plan. And this will be developed and ready for district implementation during the 24-25 school year. And by 2028, we will have a portfolio strategy that truly reflects our goals and looking at our district across quantity, quality, choice, and variety to ensure that we're improving our district and having an annual reporting process as part of that. We'll also implement our charter school accountability framework. And if you've been following us and watching our board meetings, you'll know that it was approved by our Board of Education last month. We're excited about being able to implement that and making sure that it's part of what will help us drive data-informed decisions and supports, as well as the interventions that are necessary to improve student outcomes. We also want to ensure that students, staff, and families are surveyed in a really meaningful way, and that we're getting enough information to ensure that our scholars have access to make sure that they're prepared for college, career, and life. And one thing that I'm super excited about is our portrait of a graduate and making sure that schools are connected to that portrait. We right now have a campaign where we're identifying students who will be lifted up as true portraits of a graduate. And we'll have a guidebook that's coming out shortly that's going to help support schools as well as families in understanding how the portrait of a graduate can be used to improve student outcomes. We also want to increase satisfaction. I mentioned that earlier, and making sure that we're doing this as it relates to our application and enrollment process, as well as our early childhood eligibility. And then finally, we want to increase family access to literacy resources. And we know that the state has a literacy act that's very clear that we are using the science of reading, but what other resources and supports do families need? And we want to make sure that those questions are being answered so that we can provide those supports to all of our families, including having a diverse learner strategy and a support framework that really informs the work that we're doing and provides that support for all of our subgroups to improve their performance across all of our schools. Commitment 3, student, staff, and community well-being. And this is something you've heard me talk a lot about, the supports that we have and that we need around mental health and wellness. So we want to ensure that we establish strategic partnerships to launch and implement a NOLA-PS sponsored and co-sponsored mental health and trauma initiatives. And Thrive Kids is an example of that that's happening now. And that's allowing us to be able to have school-based mental health. And I'm super grateful to the city for their commitment, the $10 million commitment, and certainly our partner with Children's Hospital, and making sure that those resources and supports are available at our schools and connected to families as well. We'll also launch and implement a data bridge system, and this is going to help us make sure that we're managing the process and the progress of monitoring student attendance. We'll continue with our campaigns. For the last 2 years, it has been Attend Today, Achieve Tomorrow, and certainly looking at that as well as Strive for 5, making sure that our scholars understand the importance of attending school, and that data bridge will give us timely data so that we can ensure that, again, we're making those data-informed decisions. And I've mentioned surveys a number of times, and so we want to make sure that our scholars feel safe and welcome at school, and at a high level. We're looking at 90% of our students responding positively to questions around safety and being welcomed at school. Also want to make sure that our stakeholders are participating in activities that we're sponsoring. This is whether it's about the family or community engagement. We want to increase the number of people who are actually engaging with us and who are coming in with the purpose of engaging with us. And then finally, for this one, we want to ensure that families of diverse learners are connected to appropriate resources and supports as well. And then I'm sorry, more about the commitment 3. This is a big commitment because, again, that mental health and wellness piece is so super important. So we know that we've got a problem in terms of historically underrepresented, underserved, and disenfranchised students having advanced learning opportunities. And many of you may know that we recently launched an equity task force that's digging into that. And we want to ensure that we're having more opportunities for all of our scholars to engage in advanced learning opportunities and attending our highest performing schools. And so we want to increase the numbers that are able to do that. And then also we want to develop and launch and implement an equity framework. And this is work that's currently happening. So we look forward to that being launched as early as next year. We want to create a database of district partnerships. There's work that needs to be done that we may not be the right ones to do it. And those partnerships and leveraging those partnerships will be extremely important for us making sure that resources and supports are provided throughout our entire school community. And then finally, establishing a comprehensive system for ongoing support for teachers as well as our school leaders so that they can enhance their professional growth. This will promote student success. We know that having a high quality, effective teacher is one of the biggest indicators for improving student outcomes, and having effective leaders is right there with that as well. Our final commitment is operational excellence. And as I mentioned earlier, it's about our facilities. It's about our operations team and what our operations team is able to do. So we're looking at the quality of our facilities and the utilization of our facilities. We're also looking at the utilization of surplus properties and making sure that they're used for community benefit. We want to ensure that employee engagement is being addressed. And this is for our internal team within our district office. We have lots of great ways to do this and things that I've certainly enjoyed doing as part of that, like the Saints 5K that's coming up. Hope to see a lot of you there getting your run on. But we also want to improve the index rate for organization culture and department morale within NOLA-PS. And we do surveys on a regular basis, and we want to increase the results that we're getting on those surveys. We want to, again, establish those annual budgets that are aligned with this strategic plan. So for each of the strategies that we have, when we look at the key performance indicators, there's a budget line that's attached to that to make sure that we're able to fund the work that we're doing. And then also looking at the at least 2 iterations of district level funding allocations so that we can ensure that our dollars are being used in a way that's benefiting our students and our students who need it the most. We also want to launch and implement that data dashboard. I mentioned that earlier because we want real-time historical as well as trend data to be able to inform our decisions. And this will be decisions around services, around supports, and actions that we need to take as a district. And then we also want to ensure that that organizational structure plan is able to maximize our efficiency and our effectiveness. And this is our organizational structure. Does it lend itself to us being able to reach the goals and to implement the strategies that we're striving to? And certainly we want to make sure that that's the case. And so I want to highlight, those are the 4 commitments, let me say that. And if you've got some specifics around any of those commitments, again, the Padlet is available and we would love to hear your feedback. But I do want to highlight a couple of initiatives that I've mentioned, but want to share more detail. And the portrait of a graduate. This establishes a North Star based on what scholars should exemplify upon graduating from NOLA-PS High School. It demonstrates our commitment to supporting the whole child. And it lays the foundation to make sure that this is truly a student-centered strategic plan of action. And we wanted to ensure that there was an alignment around district priorities and a unified focus in terms of what's happening in schools related to teaching and learning. And so you see the chart that's there, and each of those components are components that pre-K through 12 our scholars can lean into. So we can have leadership as early as first or second grade. We can have healthy humans across all grade levels, and making sure that we've got creative and critical thinkers. And so we're excited about the Portrait of a Graduate and the impact that we believe it will have on the outcomes that our learners get as they leave high school and move on to college, career, and whatever it is that they want to do to be successful beyond high school. And I mentioned before that the guidebook is coming out soon. So coming to a school or a website near you soon will be our guidebook, and that's being released on September 19th. And certainly check out our social media for more information about this. Dr. Fulmore, our deputy superintendent, has done an amazing job of engaging schools and scholars to ensure that their voices have been lifted up in this process. And I think as you look at the actual Portrait of a Graduate, and especially once the guidebook is released, you'll be able to see that our students, our scholars had a role in developing this. I also want to lift up NOLA-PS Cares. I mentioned this before as well, community access to resources and equity. When I first thought about the idea of working to support mental health and trauma, that's what NOLA-PS Cares was going to be, all about that. And I do believe that's extremely important. But as I thought more of it, and as I engaged with the community more, I started hearing about things that really resonate as more quality of life from a holistic standpoint. And those pieces include literacy, making sure that we have a literate community. And then, of course, mental health is always going to be kind of the center of NOLA-PS Cares, but also social justice. What does it look like to empower our students and really amplify their voices so that they see the role that they play in our community? And then, of course, workforce development. And I mentioned Portrait of a Graduate is certainly one of the pieces that we look at being a key component of that preparation and engaging in ensuring our scholars are ready for college, career, work, and whatever it is that they choose to do beyond high school. And all of this is possible with partnerships. And so we've already established a number of strong partnerships, and certainly look forward to others that will help us really engage in those 4 pillars and ensure that we're being really in tune to and responsive to the needs of our community. And then the hub. Now, this is also a piece that I really believe that is going to be beneficial for our community. When I think about what our families have to grapple with in terms of challenges, one of the things that I've wondered is what would it look like to have what would essentially be a one-stop shop for all things wraparound services and supports. And I would love to be able to do this at one of our facilities. And so we are looking at the hub to establish a place for this to happen. We're going to start off at our Mahalia Jackson site because it's already a family resource center. And we are partnering with Caddo Parish to ensure that we have a model that we can use. They have a very similar structure that they started a little over a year ago that I'm excited about learning more about. And then we want to again, emphasize wellness, emphasize being centered. And we're going to do that by making sure we take a mental minute. And this campaign is under the umbrella of NOLA-PS Cares, and it's really about bolstering mental health for our scholars, our families, faculty, all of Orleans Parish in a way that helps all of us cope with stress, reduce anxiety, and even enhance emotional resilience. And it's literally about taking a minute to be centered. And so there'll be a lot of tools and resources that we will share. We've already started sharing because we do have a toolkit that's accessible on our website already. And if you're interested in learning more, then certainly let us know that in the Padlet as well. Advisory committee. Some of you may have already been a part of our advisories. And last year, I think we did most of our meetings virtually, ended the year with some in-person engagement. But I look forward to the opportunity to tap into the community at the grassroots level and build those relationships so that we can ensure that we're enhancing your experience with NOLA-PS and making sure that you all are able to serve as champions for the district and for our community as we do this work. So for our scholars, we're looking at wellness as well as being junior communicators. For community partners, any partners that are interested in engaging with us and supporting the work that we're doing, enhancing the work that we're doing. And of course, looking at our parents and our families as well as our teachers. And so there is a QR code there. If you're interested in one of these advisory committees, we would certainly be happy to have your support. And then time to renew. We have the school facilities preservation millage, and the millage is set to lapse. Our current millage is set to lapse in 2024, and we're seeking to renew the millage for 20 years rather than 10. And the only thing I really want to emphasize with this is that it's not a new tax. It's not an increased tax rate, and it's necessary to ensure that we're able to continue funding facilities. And the millage election, renewal election rather, takes place on October 14th of this year. So that's next month. And with that, I'm gonna pitch it to our comms team to see if we've had any questions that have been put in the chat box. And if you don't have questions right now, you can use this QR code. And again, it'll take you to the Padlet where you can put your questions. And I want you to know that we are very intentional about listening to and taking the feedback because we definitely want to ensure that the things that we think are on the right track actually align with what your needs are. And just to give you some insights on the timeline, this is September, and at our September board meeting, I intend to present the strategic plan for board approval. And upon approval, we'll begin implementation in October. But I want to ensure you that it's a living, breathing document. And what that means to me is that even as time moves on, as things change, as data indicates that different resources or supports are needed, the plan is designed to be agile enough to change. So please don't think that what you're seeing now is written in stone. And even after being board approved, it's still not written in stone because, I believe in it being a living, breathing document. So I'll pitch it to our comms team. Oh, I see we have a board member present. Welcome to board member Nolan Marshall, who represents District 7. I don't think I see any other board members present, but if you are here, welcome as well. Courtney?
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Courtney Washington. I'm Chief Communications and Community Affairs Officer for NOLA Public Schools, and I thank you so much for joining us. And we are now at the part of our presentation where we can have a bit of a chat or conversation. So there are a couple of ways. You can use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and my team and I can call on you to ask or provide your comment. You can also drop your comment or question in the chat, and we can use that as well. Or you can provide your feedback using the Padlet, and the Padlet is set up for each one of the commitments. You can share your feedback and just some overall information, if you will. So let's see, let's check to see. I don't know, Doc, we might be okay. We don't have any questions so far, and we don't have any in the chat. Oh, we have one new. Okay, great. So this is from Ms. Tucker. What partnerships have we developed to place real working jobs into our schools, like ASE certifications, woodworking, etc.? Great question.
Oh, that is a great question. I love that question. So first, I want to lift up our Career Center, which is an amazing space where our scholars can get industry-based credentials and have the opportunity to do that using state-of-the-art equipment. So if they're interested in welding, they're literally in a lab with all of the same equipment that welders have on jobs. If they're interested in electrical, then they've got the equipment there for that. And this is something that all of our high school students have access to. We also have a number of schools that offer industry-based credentials at the schools. We do have a partnership with Youth Force NOLA, and they do a lot of work directly with our schools around career and technical education. Our schools do offer dual enrollment, and I so enjoyed attending our graduations this year and seeing the number of scholars who were graduating with college credit and some graduating with an associate's degree and a high school diploma in the same week. So lots of activity happening around career and technical education. I actually have a meeting next week with Dana Peterson, who is on the board for the Career Center, along with some other partners, to talk about the state of career and technical education right now and things that we can do to enhance it, to make sure that more of our scholars do have access to the opportunities that are there. Because one of my concerns is that we've got the opportunities, but do all of our scholars have access? And sometimes not having access is as much about not knowing that these opportunities are available. So one of the things that I want to talk about during that meeting is how do we make sure that the word is out there at the school level as well as the community level, because our career center, not only do they provide these supports for our scholars, but they've got several programs that are open to community members. So adults can come in and get industry-based credentials also. So lots of great activity happening there. And I look forward to learning more about the gaps that we have, because as I get data, I'm going to see some spaces where we can do more and we can do better, like with Jobs for America's Graduates. That's the JAG program that really leans into ensuring that our scholars are ready to get apprenticeships and internships. And many of those are paid internships where they can make money while they're in high school or right after graduating high school. And some of the success stories that I've seen throughout my career includes where you have scholars who are working on a paid internship, or they get an industry-based credential in high school and work to pay their way through college. I've seen lots of scholars do this with CNA, where they're a certified nursing assistant working to get an LPN or an RN, and they're able to do that because of that industry-based credential. So I appreciate that question, and we really do look forward to expanding our options, but also sharing the options that we currently have. And I see Olin Parker just logged on to our OPSB board president. Welcome, Mr. Parker, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry to be a little tardy to get to the party here.
No worries. Courtney?
Yes, so we have another question in the chat. So can you speak to the third grade retention law that was passed during this year's legislative session? What plans are there to ensure that prior to 2025, our children are prepared?
Yeah, and so our schools are required to ensure that teachers are going through the professional learning around science of reading, and they're doing it. Teaching reading is a challenge, so I'm really glad that the professional learning is how we led. In other words, we're starting with making sure that teachers have the resources and supports that they need to be able to truly understand the challenges that some of our scholars face with reading. And so one of the things that we will do is making sure that our schools are first of all, getting the professional learning. And there's a reporting system that's in place where that has to be reported to the state. And they've got time to do it. We've got some schools that have already completed it or are in the process of completing it for all of their teachers in grades K through 3, as well as their leaders. We've got other schools who are in the final part of completing that. So the first step is just making sure that teachers have completed the science of reading training, because we're not going to be able to improve outcomes if the teachers don't have the resources and supports that they have to understand how to engage with literacy. Another piece that I'm really interested in is working with diverse learners and early learning supports. And so when we think about that, one thing that I know for sure as an educator and as a former English teacher, early literacy does not start at pre-K. It starts at age 0 and goes through 3rd grade. And so certainly looking at how we can support our pre-K, particularly our pre-K organizations that are serving ages 0 to 3 with literacy resources and supports, and how do we make it multi-generational, who we're supporting families as well as the students, because we do know that we've got some of our babies who go home and there aren't any readers in the house, and that makes it even more of a challenge for those young people. So it's going to be kind of a multi-tiered approach where we're looking at supporting through what's happening at the schools, but also really being intentional about making sure that our early learning services also are aimed at supporting parents and families with literacy tools. You know, and when you think about those literacy laws, I've been in 2 different states where those laws were in effect, and you know, sometimes they change. We do have to pay close attention to what legislation is from year to year in terms of what's specifically required, so that we're meeting not only the reporting guidelines, but that the work is actually being done to improve outcomes at our schools. And another piece that's coming up right behind that is also the same type of work where we're looking at numeracy. So some state guidelines to ensure that our teachers have the resources that they need to be able to teach math at a high level and at the appropriate level from elementary on. So you'll be hearing more about that in the coming couple of years. The state right now is doing what we call math refresh, making sure that we are aiming at supporting our teachers to ensure that grade level math is being taught across all grade levels.
All right, Doc. Those are all the questions that's currently in the chat, and I do thank you for those that have added some of your comments to the Padlet. So thank you for that. Any additional questions, comments? Again, you're able to utilize the chat feature, use your raise hand function, come off mute and talk to us, or leave it on the Padlet, and the Padlet will remain open. So that's a good thing about it. Once you click on the link, if you have anything else additional that you want to add, you'll be able to utilize the Padlet from this moment on. And so, Doc, I'll pitch it back to you because that's all the questions that we have.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. And again, I just want to emphasize that as we move forward with this work, it is a living, breathing document and process. And so it's never too late or a bad time for you to give your feedback. And we certainly welcome your feedback. So I'm grateful for each and every one of you for taking time out to be here with us or to listen to it later, however you choose to engage. Thank you so very much. And we certainly look forward to seeing you real soon. So thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Hello there, Miss Dominique. It's so great to see you.